The last thing we can do with our plotting is we can go ahead and annotate them. So there's a couple different things we can do to annotate. We can create a title, label our X and Y axes, turn a grid off and on, add some text to our data, add a legend, and modify the range of our axes. So here's what it indicates up in this plot here. This is where a title is placed. A legend looks like this. It can be placed wherever you want. X-axis, Y-axis labels. Those are our data markers. So if we look over at the data I've plotted over here, it's the same data I've been plotting, except I created two different sets of data. One with data points from -10 to 10 with a value of 1, so a step of 1 in between, so like 21 data points, and my original 200 data point lines. So here's my Y1 data, here's my Y2 data. Okay, so in my first figure here, in my first set of axes, so my subplot 1, 2, 1, 1 row, 2 columns, row 1, or column 1, my first subplot, I went ahead and plotted my my Y, so my regular Y function. The one with X1 is my 21 data points, so I have a asterisk data marker and they're magenta, and you can see those points listed here. There's no line. I didn't specify line, so there's no line. And then for my 200 data points, it's this black line here. So it's a dashed line, and K is for black. No data markers. I did not specify my data markers. And I used hold on and hold off so I could plot them separately. I could plot them together. So if I went ahead and did this, you can go ahead and do plot together and specify your data markers per set. However, you cannot do the marker size or the line width unless it applies to all of them. So here I get the same data. In subplot 2 over here, I plotted my 21 data points with a, this is my 200 data points with my dot dash line, so it's the dot dash line and the R is for red. And for my 21 data points, it's a diamond data marker that's blue with a marker size of 5. So I did these separately with hold on. But now I want to go ahead and add titles to it. So here, I can go ahead and just below each subplot, I'm going to add a title. So title, here is my original Y function. For this title down here, it's my derivative. If I go ahead and run it, I can see now my title is added to the top. And you can make this title whatever you want. You can go ahead and concatenate strings together. So just like we did with display, we can go ahead and create a string of things. We can do num to string, whatever. But we can go ahead and modify our title however we want, as long as it's one single string. If I want to go ahead and change my x-axis, so x label, I can say X values, whatever you want it to be. Y label, Y values. In theory, you would be plotting meaningful numbers, and those would actually have units that you can insert. So we can see my X label and Y label show up. You can also change the grid. I really like to add a grid, so you just say grid on. It's going to go ahead and add a grid to your data, so I only did a grid on for this one. I think grids look really nice. You can add text to your data, so it's literally adding it to the axis. So in the 0, 0 location, I can say text 0, 0. I can add some text and say, I don't know, center of graph, whatever. So I can see here that text is added right next to 0, 0. You can also add a legend. So you would just say legend and then for whatever lines you have plotted. So my first line that I plotted down here was my 200 data points. So 200 data points. My second line was 21 data points. So you can go ahead and add in that. If you want to go ahead and change the location on your legend, you would just say location, and then there's northwest, northeast. My favorite location is best, where it just automatically decides where the best location is. That's not necessarily the best location for it to be, so I can say east. And I can see it changes and puts it in the southeast location. And then we can change the axes. So let's say I want to go ahead and change the axes. So I want my axis to be between -10, 10, and then, so this is my x min, x y, or x min, x max, and then I can do my y min and y max. Let's say I want to do from negative 1,000 to 1,200. So I can see now I popped my center up, or my bottom up a little bit more. But that's one thing we can do. We can also, there's some default axes as well. So axis tight is a nice one, where it's gonna essentially make the mins and maxes equal to the mins and maxes of your y value. But that's all the things that we can do to annotate our graphs, annotate our plots. We can change them however we want, but we can really make our figures look really nice, and this is where MATLAB really shines.